We're good. All right. Well, I think the planning for the meteor scatter event has come along pretty well. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at the rules or the operating guidelines or stuff I posted in the last couple of days, but I'd obviously be interested to see if you have any comments or if there's anything that really stands out that needs correcting or improving. That would be welcome comments, obviously. But for now, it is what it is. Okay, so what I thought we would do today, I'm going to go to my other computer, share that computer screen. Let's see if this works. Open system settings. Okay. Passwords. It's always fun when you do something.
Live television. There you go.
Yeah, I've got to quit and reopen on that computer, of course, naturally. Yeah, you're right, Ed. You're right. So let's try this again. Anytime you do a demo, right, it's fraught with whatever. No, I don't want that. Okay, I'm back in. It knows we're being recorded. It seems to be happy. Let's happen to see if I share. And there y'all are again. There's something close to it. Okay, I don't need that. Don't need that. Oh, more security stuff. Well, I'm going to try and skip that and see what happens. Okay, but I thought I'd start with, in case some of you are not familiar, most of you probably are, but this is a picture of the audio interface between the software that runs the meteor scatter program, WSJT-X. And this is a very common, there's lots of these things that are manufactured and lots of different ways of doing this, but this is just one of the sound card interfaces. Pretty simple, with a couple of level controls and a delay control, which we don't have to worry about, but there's my quarter for size purposes. I think next, let's see what's on the back. And there's the back of it. One connection to the radio and another USB connection to click into the software. So if you've never seen one of these things, at least now you have an idea. All right, let's close that thing down. All right. And one thing I'm not sure everybody realizes, and at least it works really well here on my Apple stuff, is if something on the screen is too small, I'm able to zoom in locally into any part of the screen and see more detail. So perhaps for whatever reason, if I'm not zoomed in close enough or there's too much detail on the screen, hopefully the rest of you should be able to zoom in locally and see kind of what's going on. All right. Let me get rid of this. Yes.
I hope I don't get laughed at. Isn't my radio going to be able to do the same function as that Tigertronics that you just showed us?
What kind of rig do you have, Ron?
I've got a Elecraft K3S. So it should be able to do the same thing, right?
Let's see. Well,
yes, it should, although I've got a K3 and I use the signal link just for habit.
Yeah, with a K3S, you won't need that. You use the KIO3B, which has a USB port, and
right.
that connects directly to WSJT, so you won't need the signal link interface.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought maybe I was missing something. Okay, thanks, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that goes into the there's more than one way to skin a cat category, I guess. Keep in mind too that my low band rig is a Ten-Tec Omni 7, which I purchased in 2007. So from a technology point of view, it's getting pretty long in the tooth, especially compared to the Elecraft stuff and the newer ICOMs and that whatnot. So good point, Ron. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. So this is the, I guess you'd say the command screen. This is WSJTX, Joe Taylor and others that wrote this that through all these wonderful digital modes. And I see it's cut off at the bottom a little bit. No, maybe not. There it is. What I thought I would take a quick peek at is the configuration behind the scenes. Maybe some of you have been through these screens. Let's see, I got to go over on this computer. Oh, no, it's the Zoom settings. I don't want that. I want the WSJT settings. Okay. So when you configure the software, if you've never used it before, many of you probably use it for FT8, so this is going to be a review. But it's pretty simple to get your call sign, your grid, and that sort of thing in there. The nice thing about the software, most of the checkboxes and whatnot have tooltips. So if you're not sure what kind of something means, you just mouse over it and you get a clue. So there's either read the manual, try it and see what happens, or use the tooltips, or all the above. So I think last time I used this software is for the Eclipse back in April. So that's when my call sign and grid and all that sort of stuff are still in there. Am I missing anything critical in here that somebody uses or would help for MSK 144 and the meteor scatter stuff?
Looks good so far, Gary.
Okay. And this is going to be very individual, depending on what radio you've got, what kind of interface and stuff you've got. But for my particular radio, I've got my interface and baud rate and that sort of thing. The PTT method is something you have to play with. Some radios do that over the digital control, over the computer-aided transceiver link. I'm going to use the Vox method. That works out well for me. And a few other things. So most of this I can't, obviously it's going to be very, very individual based on your station.
But if it's working for FT8, it should work for MSK, correct?
Exactly, yes. Yeah, don't change anything. If it's working, don't
touch
change
it. Right, yeah.
Right. Audio, same kind of thing. 99% of the time, I think it's going to be USB audio codec, whether you're using something like the Signal Link or like Ron and others suggested, if you've got a radio that'll put out the audio over USB, I think it'll still be the USB audio codec.
Yeah, it should be, Gary.
Okay, good.
I intend to install the 144 this evening, so I'm really glad you're doing this now. This is helpful.
So something I don't make much use of, it's more for the conversational modes, like at the Solar Eclipse QSO party. Sometimes if the bands weren't busy, the last message I would send to somebody was good luck in the SEQP. I don't believe there's a call or a reason to add transmit macros unless somebody knows differently for MSK 144. In fact, I'll just delete that one because it'll be a while to the next Solar Eclipse QSO party. But I think we're okay with this screen in the blank. Now the next one is really worth some emphasis. This is the reporting screen. So as you receive signals over here on the left-hand pane, whether it's MSK 144, FT8, whatever mode you're running, that information we want to transfer to PSK reporter, because that's really huge for Coldeep and all the others who are going to want to analyze the data after the event. And this is the guy here, this checkbox is what makes sure that your received data goes out to PSK reporter. So it couldn't be a whole lot easier than just checking that box. And I think the software does the rest for you. I've never had to change anything else on the screen. Now, I'm not familiar with this one here, DB report to comments. This probably has to do with the ADIF files that are generated as people are logged. I'm not sure. Is anyone familiar with this particular checkbox?
This will also report this online.
Oh, really?
Yes,
So that would be helpful to have this checked in, wouldn't you say, Bill?
Right.
it would. Yeah, always
Okay.
check that one.
All right. I personally like to be prompted to log a contact. You're not gonna be making contacts that quickly. When at the completion of a contact, it's kind of a little box will pop up and say, do you want to log it? I prefer to be more in control than to automate things. So that's, again, personal preference. This one's important and this one's really important. And I don't think you need to worry about the rest of this stuff unless you're doing something fancy with an alternate logging program, or you're using UDP to pass data to some other programs which may be running on your computer. But I don't think any of this is necessary to run MSK 144.
Agreed, looks just like mine.
Good, okay. Must be out of the box that way then with the ports and everything. Frequencies, you probably don't have to worry about. This is just the standardized frequencies, and I'll show you in a second on the software where they show up. And but you can always dial in your own frequency, which is exactly what we'll want to do for 10 meters. So again, I don't think you have to worry about this tab too much.
You probably have to put in the 10-meter frequency, and one key is when you're done, click that OK, otherwise it won't save anything.
Is there a way to add that, Joe? I'm looking for a plus sign or something to add a frequency.
You're
I think you
right,
just right click someplace on it.
yep,
Yes,
exactly,
Oh,
sir.
look at that.
Look at that.
All right.
like that.
Right click is right, okay.
Direct 3-4 is actually here in this again, big work feature.
And okay, so we've got that frequency added in there. We'll see where that pops up in a minute. Good.
Don't forget
Colors
the
again. Yeah, okay. We say okay, and then I'll go back into that screen, huh? Go back into the preferences.
Yeah,
And there it is.
been there, done that.
Okay. Colors, it's all user preference. I don't think you have to mess with any of that. The advanced screens, I've not used myself.
That's
Any reason to
primar-
check anything here?
Primarily when you're down in the lower half, if there's a special operating activity, if you're either a fox or a hound, which is a real popular mode for DXers, they have this new Super Fox mode that's checked there. I haven't actually used that. Rich has K1HTV. But I don't think this is relevant to what we're doing. If for some reason we wanted to use WSJTX to do a contest log, you could get, you could set that up and then it would show up over on the right there, like, ARRL field day or something. I think that's way too much hassle to go to. I think we're good with the logging plan that we have currently.
Okay, and I'll open that up in a minute too. Yeah, I'll look at
Recommend
that screen.
messing with that, yeah.
Okay, so I think we've made it through the setup screens. So the reason we added that frequency, we're see if there it is. There is so you can change. You've got a pull down to change frequencies and send things to your radio, but we've now got one specific for us. It pulls up 28.145. Now I'm not, of course, receiving any meteor scatter at the moment, so the screens up above aren't going to see a whole lot. I'm going to dial down to the FT8 portion just so people
Are
can
you
see.
connected to an antenna?
Yes.
On the upper screen, it might be worth telling people how to set those so they can see something, for example. Like the left scroll bar on the left side, you tweak that just enough so that you start to see a little bit of noise on those graphs. And then the center one is how blue you want it. And then on the right one is you bring up a little graph line that comes underneath. See, now you're doing it right. Just set it so you just see it just a little bit. And then when when a ping comes along, it will really show up.
Or just
Toggle
the auto level, and that normally
Okay.
gets you where
And
you
the
want to
last
go
one
to.
will bring it there. There you go. Now you also see the ping on the graph as well.
If I hit auto level, yeah, at least that gives you a starting point, and then you can fiddle around yourself too.
Yeah.
I have
Let me,
been I've been transmitting MSK 144 there for the last 5 minutes or so, but obviously there's nothing coming through.
Yeah, I've got a
Might pick up some
20-meter
FT this
quarter
time.
wave vertical. I don't have much of an antenna, so
Are you on a 20-meter antenna? Yeah, that's
yeah,
not gonna give us much.
Hey,
ground mounted, no less.
hey, Gary and the group. So I'm gonna try either tonight or tomorrow night to add this in. If there's questions, is it best to do a couple of people individually like Joe or people that are experienced in this? Or should we just put our questions out to the HamSCI? Or and I've got a couple other people I'm talking to, so I'm just curious going forward, if people start reading this and looking at it and getting into it, what's going to be the optimal way to answer questions for people with and without HamSCI that are setting this up and interested in it? Probably a question that could have waited, but it just occurred to me.
You can always send questions to me if you want, as long as I'm not inundated. The issue you might get into is not so much what Gary just went through on the actual app. A lot of people, if they're not familiar with doing FT8, they could come up with all kinds of problems with the radio setup, and that's not something we should be concerned about.
Right. And I'm not going to encourage that in any. I've helped people with FT8, and I'm not really interested in getting involved in that again. Well, never mind. That's a whole path for some of these brand new hams that we're bringing in every other month when we test that is not one of the most pleasant mentoring things to do. I'll just leave it at that. I see Joe laughing. So
For the purposes of this meteor scatter contest, involve the group. The HamSCI email list, I would suggest, is the best place to go. If you're brand new to WSJT-X, there's also a groups.io list for that. And believe it or not, there's a manual online where you download WSJT-X. Go by the famous acronym RTFM. Read the manual, and then you learn about it, and you'll answer most of your own questions. So
I agree, and that's what I've suggested. I'll tell you, I think the manual is one of the better written manuals. And yeah, and I'm on the forum already, so appreciate that, Bill. And I was looking more towards questions on just the HamSCI and the meteor scatter and some of that stuff. But I really probably just need to read some of the emails that have been sent by some people that are very knowledgeable on it.
use the HamSCI email list. That way everyone can learn from it.
Okay.
Yeah, I recommend that. That's been working so far.
So Bruce, if I've already got FT8, it's not my favorite mode, but I do jump on once in a while. Can I add the MSK 144 from that window, or do I need to go into the WSJT into their site and download it from there?
No, it's already there. If you have FT8 available to run under WSJTX, MSK 144 is already there. If you look at the window Gary's showing right now in the lower left, you see it actually allows you to choose between FT8 and MSK now.
I've probably been there the
Just
whole
barely-
time. Yeah, and I've probably just seen that the whole time and missed it.
And then all you need to worry about is the settings that are kind of in the middle on the lower part.
Right.
And those are exactly the same settings I use.
Also, if you look at the menu bar at the very top, there's a selection for mode. And that's where it's been selected.
Right.
Okay.
The last thing to worry about is your processing level, because there's a kind of a normal, a light, and a deep. And that's just a matter of the processing capability of your computer. So Gary is set up on deep, and you notice that down there, that green receiving says 22%.
Yep.
That's the load on his computer. Mine is usually running around 7 or 8% for deep. And if you go to normal or something, it'll be even less.
I've always run deep on my FT8, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all you need. Yeah, I would just keep doing that. The
Thanks to
frequency
Chris.
tolerance gives you it also uses some processing, and it gives you a little more leeway in being able to pick up receiving the frequencies if they're not quite where you're setting the frequency tolerance.
That's
All right, thanks.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the frequency tolerance is on the critical side because the other station could be a little off too. So mine always powers up to 50, and something like 50 on 2 meters, depending on the other station, for example, you may not decode anything. Whereas if you go up to 200, you usually can get them.
I have a question for Gary.
Sure, go ahead, Greg.
Who's KF4 Alpha Alpha Foxtrot?
That's probably the last person I worked or called the last time I was in FT8 back in April.
I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. So I dialed down real quick to the FT8 portion of the band. Now it's not going to decode or anything, but just so those who haven't seen some of these frequency spectrum displays, this is the kind of stuff you see for various modes. Meteor scatters are going to look quite a bit different from what I've seen though. But
I find the graphs are very useful because meteor scatter will show up as bursts and pings, all right? And if something else is starting to interfere, like tropo, sporadic E, F2, then you start to see the total signal go across the whole bar, or sections of it fade in and fade out, all right? And that's how you start to tell that other propagation modes is gonna start to QRM you.
yeah, I just parked on 28.124 for a second because at some point while we're talking, my whisper transmitter will probably come on, and that's got an interesting spectrum to look at too. But so frequency tolerance of 200 seems reasonable. The 15-second, up there it is. My whisper beacon just kicked off. But I'll keep going for 2 minutes. That'll be.
That's almost what you would see on an MSK 144 signal that's maybe local and you're listening, except it'll look really hashy sounding and you'll hear a buzz all the way across.
Those must be the individual tones that whisper is transmitting the information on. All right, I'll go back to where we belong. So I can go to 10 meter. I can use the pull down to find our right frequency, and there we go. Okay. Yeah, there is an art. If you've never transmitted these modes, there is an art to setting up your transceiver. And I guess the only piece of advice I would have is watch the ALC, the automatic level control. Because everything you read, and it makes a lot of sense, is that if your ALC is coming on, you're probably over modulating the transmitter. You're going to be clipping, and your signal is basically going to be what I would call a dirty signal. So familiarize yourself with the ALC indicator on your rig.
The WSJT-X manual mentions this very specifically, and it's most often ignored, although it's getting better now. You should increase your power to the amount where you get no more power output and then back it off slightly. That's the point at which your signal will be clean. So you just see a slight decrease in power output as you decrease the audio level. That's the correct setting. Don't go for full ALC. Don't operate like half the hams do on 20-meter sideband. Back the audio level down until your power output just begins to decrease.
Yeah, I'm not
this
sure
is-
about 144, MSK 144, but all the other Milk Whisper and FT8 and all those modes are constant envelope, which means there's only one tone transmitted at a time. So you really don't have to worry about splattering as much. But as you say, if you're overdriving the final, it doesn't make any difference what the envelope is.
Yes, it does.
Well,
I
well,
realize the theory, but yes,
yeah,
people do splatter because they have too much audio.
Yeah, you really absolutely have to watch that ALC.
RTFM.
Yeah, and you've got the option to change your output power here on this slider. And in my case, with the signal link, I've also got a transmit level control. So I've got a couple different places to fiddle with that. But
Gary, on your signal link, I would recommend you turn your receive up a little bit so that on the lower left, you get up to somewhere between 50 and 60. That seems to be a sweet spot for most people. That's where I run.
let me turn my transmitter back off and go back to an antenna. So by turning up my receive level, you can see this green bar here is moving up. There's not much noise on 10 meters, so it's kind of peaked out.
Yeah, and actually, you're not going to see that change much even with signal there. So run it up to around between 50 and 60, and you should have that's where most people tend to operate. You could either do it on your signal link or you could do it in your sound card in your computer.
That would be high for FT8.
Yeah, I know. I keep mine at 30 for everything.
30 is what they recommend.
Really? Because I've always run
RTFM.
between 50 and 60 and never had a problem.
A little tooltip just came up there.
I'll go with that. So
Yeah.
for 40, below 40, I guess.
Yeah, 30, 40 seems reasonable.
It's funny, you can also be in on 10 meters. You see some other stuff squeak in once in a while. Once in a while, I'll see an Iona sound sweep through, you know, where you never see that stuff on 6 meters.
Okay, the other thing I was going to suggest, and I kind of wanted to get in our recording today at some point. Let's see, where'd my mouse go? There we go.
yep.
If you do a search on YouTube of MSK 144, there are a couple of people who've put together some videos on MSK. Now, I haven't watched them, so I can't vouch for their accuracy or whatever, but at least there's another option too, is if you want to read up on some of this stuff before you operate or watch up or whatever the term is. But
What, hams? Read a manual? Nah.
yeah, I know. There's readers around.
Don't need no
So,
stinking
You don't read the
manual.
manual till you smell smoke.
When all else fails, read the instructions.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's an option too. That's an option too.
So I wanted to talk, this is Ed, I wanted to talk a little bit about the timing of the meteor shower that we're aiming at. Each year, the peak varies slightly due to the fact that the Earth's orbit isn't perfectly round around the sun. And for the 2025 meteor, this particular meteor shower, the peak is predicted to be at around 9:30 a.m. on April 22nd. And then it will, because of the shape of this particular, the April Lyrids, it is about 2 days, plus and minus. And so for radio, which I'm pulling this off of optical information, but you really the best time to do these is in the AM, and that's because the Earth is in the AM, the Earth is running into the meteors as opposed to running away from the meteors. And so the timing is perfect for this, because the peak of the meteor of the density of the meteors that the Earth is passing through will be highest around 9:30 a.m. And because it's in the AM, the side of the Earth that is running into the meteors will be is in the AM. So that just gives you a picture of what to look for in this. And by AM, I'm talking about after midnight to about noon. Anyway, I wanted to give that information because I had pulled it up from astronomical sources.
It also brings up a point of how long does the contest run, all right? If we're worldwide, timing depends on your time zone, and yet when you work media scatter around the shower, it usually shows up a few days before and after, all right? So then you say, and it varies with each shower too. So for each contest period, is it just for the one day? Is it for a 2 or 3 day stretch? That's something maybe we need to think about.
So my initial thought on that, and obviously open for correction, was to make a 48 hour window, to give people the maximum opportunity. Maybe that's the right number, maybe it's the wrong number, I don't know, but at least with a 48 hour window, people have, in different time zones and stuff, have an opportunity to get the morning showers, as Ed was saying.
We should get some pretty good indication based on the April, based on the Lyrids, about what kind of activities we get out of people on both 10 meters and 6 meters. And that'll probably give us some guidance for how to set it for the later in the year, if we need to set it at all.
Yeah, and FYI is our first releases have gone out already, so hopefully a lot of people see them.
A couple of you have said in the past
What did
few
we
weeks
say? What did we say in the release in terms of when the event is going to take place?
I think it referred back to the operating guidelines that are on our website right now,
Yep.
which is the 48 hour period.
Yep, 48 hours. We can
But
certainly
now-
make adjustments as we get closer, right?
Yeah, and the top of the guidelines say under development, so we kind of,
Yeah.
I hedged our
Give
bets,
ourselves
'cause
an hour.
but yeah, I think the April is going to give us a good learning opportunity. Now, whether it was Joe or Bruce or Rich or whoever it was, these pings, we don't have to wait for the April showers. I mean, I do have a 6 meter antenna. I could be monitoring 6 meters over the next couple of evenings or mornings or something like that, just to see if anything shows up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I could send you some 6 meter right now. I've been transmitting on 10 meters ever since the meeting started. I think there's actually a beacon station. Somebody came up with a narrow signal up on 125 just a moment ago. But anyways, what we keep telling people is Saturday mornings, in particular between local 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and we've been getting hams involved and coordinating on ping jockey. Not so much on the other days. There has been some on some other days, but you need to get out there and say that, yeah, I'm up here transmitting, so you get some other people involved, because otherwise there just is nobody listening. That hopefully that will improve greatly in April. We're in April and during the Lyrids in a couple of weeks.
So what kind of distance am I going to probably be looking at with my signal?
We're hoping that on 10 meters, you're getting better. Well, we may get better. Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. We may get better range, but you'll have a better
pretty much,
opportunity based on the rocks that you're hitting.
it's E-skip range, pretty much.
Okay, that helps.
500,000 miles, maybe 1,200 miles, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Sound right? Does it sound right to you, Bob?
Question?
I said 500 to 1,000 or 1,200 miles.
Yeah,
It would be really nice if we could make
one
it
hop,
range.
one hop.
Yeah, yeah.
You,
We
you
could
can
to the
get
front
two
range,
hops,
it would
but
be great.
you gotta have two meteors at the same time at different locations, so it's,
That would be funny now.
That would be
You get a
serendipity.
meteor hop and get a sporadic E-hop going the other way.
well,
If I get something like that, I'm heading to Las Vegas.
I haven't lived that good of a life. I wouldn't be that lucky.
Hey, Joe, talk about off topic. Guys, you gotta bear with me for a minute. So is that a Martin guitar shirt that you're wearing?
Absolutely.
Oh,
That's why you don't see me signing in the last 2 Thursdays, all right? Because I'm doing a 15-song folk Americana and a little bit of country music set over at a nursing home, all right? So I have 3 Martin guitars. And given all the economics, our Martin just had a 20% sale off on 2 types of their strings, and one of them I used. So I just bought 10 packs of strings for 2 reasons. One, the 20% discount, and 2, they're made in Mexico, so you got to beat those tariffs.
oh yeah, I've got a very nice Martin guitar. Sorry to
What do you have? What do you have?
sorry to everybody to hijack it. I'll send you something offline, Joe. I just
Okay.
saw that Martin. I've got a T-shirt with it, and I saw that, and I'm like, I gotta interrupt the meeting. I
You
have
have
to
good
ask.
taste. Ham
Gary,
radio and Martin guitars.
Yeah, apologies to Gary and the group. I'll go back to my corner now and be quiet.
It's just a different part of the spectrum, Ron, that's all. Different part of the spectrum. All right, I'll open up. Any other comments or questions? What I think I'll do is late tomorrow, I'll put a note on the HamSCI Google group and suggest people at least listen on. Would 6 meters be the best chance, you think, Bruce, to get some activity on Saturday morning, just for listening?
Yeah, you'll definitely get activity on Saturday morning. There's a lot of activity going on. Actually, any morning. If you get on tomorrow morning, tomorrow's Friday, get on tomorrow morning on 6 meters. And I mean, if you want to pick a time, I'll meet you and we can even try it. You and I can try it. We can try 6 and 10.
Yeah, I'm too antenna limited myself, but I would sure like to be able to listen because you never know what you might hear.
Well, why don't you get on 6 meters at I don't know, what's a good time? 7 o'clock or so?
Yeah, I'm an early riser. That's no problem.
I'll be active and along with other people that'll be on Ping Jockey talking about it. So we can try that. That'll give you a good chance to check everything out. What kind of 6 meter antenna are you using?
Oh, it's basically it's a 6 meter vertical. It's a 6 meter, 2 meter, 440 vertical. So
Oh, okay.
far less than ideal, I'm sure. And it's low. It's in my garage attic. So
Yeah.
if I hear anything, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, you'll probably hear some stations at least, even if you're not being
Yeah.
heard.
you should hear some pings, at least.
Right.
So I see Kuldeep is here, and he had some ideas too that I think are worth discussing. Kuldeep had a couple of ideas, one of which is to potentially, I'm not sure we'd want to do it at the start, but maybe at the second chance at this back in December, would you bring another band in 12 meters, Kuldeep? Or are you thinking about 24 megahertz as well?
Yeah. If we have say 50 megahertz, 24 and something around 10, or say 24 and 50, that will be good. Having 2 to 3 frequencies are always better when we are trying to get the interpretations.
I did a quick look at PSK reporter data from last August showers, and there was nobody. I didn't see anything on 12 meters or 24 megahertz.
One of the problems
Going down.
Bob and I are probably going to say the same thing. The lower you go in frequency, the more interference you get from other modes. All right.
Yeah.
So that's basically, we don't go down there because like if you went down to 10 megahertz, for example, something's coming in from all
Yep.
over someplace.
You bump into the MUF.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
you start running into F2 propagation, then you won't know
Absolutely, yeah.
what's
You'll
happening.
get lots of activity and you can technically make lots of contacts, but it's not meteor scatter, but
Okay, so that's something to consider for the future. I think for now, I think we'll maybe keep it simple and just use the two frequencies and 50 megahertz or 52 and 28 megahertz. The second idea Cold Deep had, which I thought was pretty interesting too, is to have, if it were legal, I'm not sure it is to have some beacon stations where people are just kind of transmitting more or less continuously for a certain number of hours. And then that kind of thing shows up in the data and it gives you kind of a reference point as opposed to the rest of us who may be changing frequencies or changing bands and so on and so forth. The problem is I looked into the rules from the FCC. A beacon station is allowed to use up to 100 watts, but they've got to be up at 28.2 megahertz or between 28.2 and 28.3. And that's really far outside the passband of where all the operators would be listening. So I'm not sure anybody would hear, if you operate legally, if anybody would hear them.
If the station was a manned station, meaning there was a person running the signal and they were at the station, then you could run, for example, you could put something out on FT8 and just keep going and going as long as you're there, all right?
Just,
But if it's
that's
unmanned or not unmanned station, then you got to follow the beacon rules.
but as long as you're calling CQ and sitting there trying to work somebody, you could run the power up and
Right, there's no, as far as I can tell from the rules, there's no restrictions other than somebody has to be at the station and able to turn it off if there's a problem.
Oh. We may want to stir up, see if we can find some volunteers to do some beaconing then. Is that the thought?
well, just getting on and but maybe the idea of some activity hours like we used to do on the VHF and UHF bands. And like 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock AM local time or Central Standard Time or something. You know, it's the dawn peak is or well, it's really when the Earth is moving. The midpoint of the path is moving straight into the swarm of meteors that are random, but and maybe sometime in the evening would be worthwhile just because people are available in the evening more than
You're more likely to run into F2. You know, it's basically what we've been doing and coordinating with Ping Jockey Central is that's what we're doing. We're telling people, you know, get active. You know, I'm transmitting and nobody's hearing me. We need somebody there. And if you go to Ping Jockey, you'll see a bunch of discussion going on that people will say, okay, I now turned mine on and I heard Bruce or I heard Rich, but they're not hearing me. All that's all happening on Ping Jockey in real time.
Right, and what I said before was the 6 a.m. local solar time is probably where your maximum meteor activity is for that particular day, and 6 p.m. local solar time is when your minimum meteor activity is going to be in as a general rule.
The MSK users, if you look at Ping Jockey, when people start making comments, that starts between 4 and 5, probably closer to 5 in the morning and goes until about 9, 2 to 3, 4 hours. And that chat room is specifically by definition for MSK, period. Nothing else is allowed to be to be discussed there. So that's when the users are out, and that's when that's essentially the beaconing that we're talking about, as long as there are people transmitting on 10 meters. If there's 100 people and everybody's listening, it's not going to do anybody any good, right? You got to have transmitters.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think the big thing is, let's see how we do in the Lyrids in April, even though it's not part of our official event. But you guys are doing a good job, it sounds like, of getting people interested, and Ed's doing the PR thing, and we'll see how much activity we can stir up. Any other comments, anything anybody would like to add, any further questions for this afternoon or evening?
Now, this was great, Gary. I think also this is one I think we should really put up and point people to. You know, for those who don't know how to set the rig up for 144, I think this is a really good example. So
I agree. Did you cover recording to WAV files too?
No, I had not mentioned that.
Okay, maybe in a future session, you might consider recording to WAV files, and then take a look at what those WAV files look like after they're recorded, because those WAV files can be a very significant source of data for Kuldeep and who's ever looking at this afterward.
So basically, over say a 2-hour period, we'd have a wave file of a specific frequency or whatnot.
Yeah, well, that's what we have to take a look and see how those WAV files actually come out. I don't know how the program produces them, but yeah, I don't know if they're time stamped or if they're frequency stamped or what, but hopefully they produce something that would give us additional data that would be usable. And if it's not usable, perhaps we can look at what adjustments would be needed to make them usable for looking at things after the fact. But I think those WAV files, anytime you have spectrograms or those real time, or not real time, time series data, that's very valuable for post analysis.
I can try to record some WAV files on Saturday when, there should be some users.
That would be really great.
I record WAV files using my remote software, because that's how I always record the WAV files for slow scan TV off the ISS.
Right.
I can go back and reprocess it if I want to.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing we want. And I saw that the WSJT software, it looks like it does have some facility for recording WAV files. I just don't know if those WAV files have sufficient metadata attached to them to actually be usable or not. So I think if you are doing this experiment on Saturday, if people can turn on that WAV file recording functionality, then on a future call, we can look at those WAV files and determine if they are useful. And hopefully they are.
They're big, I'll tell you that, because 2 minutes of slow scan TV is about 15 megabytes.
Yeah, it makes sense, but there's definitely a place for this. And if you look at like the Zenodo website, people can upload for free data sets of up to 50 gigabytes. So even if each person who's participating in the MS Meteor Scour QSO party, they're probably going to be generating 50 gigabytes or less of data over the 2-day period, and that could all get pushed up to Zenodo, and then Kuldeep can have at it.
Yeah, the real key point is after you're done doing this on MSK 144, you go to another submode in WSJT, is turn that function off, disable it, or you'll
Right.
fill up your hard drive very quickly. There was a recent email list about that.
It's a good warning. But if we can get those wave files and if they're marked properly, they will be extremely valuable to us.
Let me do a quick screen share if I can with you, my other computer here. There is a setting in there somewhere. Let's see. So in the configuration, under audio, looks a little bit odd. I don't know what that box is. There is a save directory. So there is definitely a directory where these things are supposed to be saved, but path to which wave files are saved. So make sure you know where that's at. I don't quite see how to do it. I have to look at the manual. All right. Okay, great. That's another option, another idea. Anything else anybody like to throw into the ring? Good. Okay. All right. Like I said, I think I'll put a notice out late on Friday or later in the day on Friday, our time here in the States, and see if we can get some people, more people listening, and get some more data up on PSK Reporter, and see how it goes this weekend for the heck of it. So, anything else from anyone? Nope. All right, we'll call it a wrap then. Thanks, everyone. Let me turn off the recording. Have a good week. Let me do that.